This video is sponsored by my good friends at Konami, and they sent me the Switch code for Yu-Gi-Oh! The Early Days Collection. This is a combination of 14 classic games for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. And this is for fans of the classic card game. And you'd be surprised how many Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games there are. And this one includes all the awesome ones offered on the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color platforms. Coming February 27th, this is $50. Coming to Steam and Nintendo Switch. There's going to be a physical release on Nintendo Switch. I'll talk a little bit about that. 14 games with a few that weren't released here ever. Some have been translated, multiple different languages. There's unlockables and featuring many of the classic characters that made this franchise popular. You can check out the different box art from different regions. I love that. And there's save features, rewind features, and so there's a digital gallery. So awesome that this is an homage to fans of the card game or the video games. Maybe you played the video games and not the card game, but wow, there's a lot to enjoy and appreciate for fans of this series. Now, the Switch version gets offered one of the Harpies Feather Duster. It's a spell card, one of two different art forms offered, and that's going to be on the physical release of the Switch version, which will be offered February 27th. First up is the first one, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, and this was offered in Japan, sold pretty well. And the player must defeat each character in a stage 5 times to advance to the next stage. A character that has been defeated 5 times can be dueled additional times for more cards, and lots of cool features in this game. And so there's Yugi, there's Tristan, there's Joey. And if you're not familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's a card game where two players battle each other using a deck of cards with different monster, spell, and trap abilities, aiming to reduce their opponent's life points to 0 by strategically placing cards to attack their opponent's monsters or directly damage them. Duel Monsters 2, and in this one the gameplay is still pretty much the same, but it added much more cards. 355 new cards for a total of 720. So pretty crazy. And you know what? I really enjoy the simplicity of this card game. It's easy to play and tough to master. Then you have Japanese exclusives that now have been translated for the Western. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster Capsule GB is a video game for a Game Boy Color. And it takes most of its inspiration from manga's Monster World story arc and the Capsule Monsters stories using both Duel Monsters and Capsule Monsters. And so this collection features non-card themed games, and this is one of them. I like this one. And I like these types of games. Haven't really played a lot like this on Game Boy Color. And so you can unlock lots of things in these games. There's lots of different modes, save features, and it's really important to know that. You can duel with friends, and there's online features with some of these games with updates happening at a later date. So then you had Dark Duel Stories, which what it was called in the States. Very popular and one that I enjoy checking out and revisiting after so many years. This came out in 2002 here in the States. What's kind of cool about this is there's a card creation in which you can create cards using top half and bottom half monster card part. I remember this one being really popular. Another one that wasn't based on the card game specifically was Dungeon Dice Monster. And it's a dice-based tactics video game based on the original board game featured in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Storyline. And so this one came out in 2003 in North America. And you know what? It was adapted into a real tabletop game in 2002. And it's so awesome that this is being offered again. And so you can compete against a computer or face head-to-head with a real opponent. And so there's so many awesome things about these versions of games. I know many people, these are some of the favorites, and this for me, for the non-card based game of Yu-Gi-Oh, I like this one. This is kind of more my jam, and probably of all the ones in this collection, this is one that I would probably want to gravitate to, because these were the types of games that I played on my original Game Boy Advance. These tactics style games, ones that I like to go back and play. So many of these games are very involved, and good news is there's save and load states, as well as if you do a turn and you mess up, there's rewind features as well. And so, as I mentioned before, there's going to be online play after launch, and so pretty awesome that there's so many awesome classic games of the Yu-Gi-Oh series offered in this collection all in one spot. The Game Boy had some amazing Yu-Gi-Oh releases, and then you had the Eternal Duelist Soul, and this was well received by critics and enthusiasts of the card series. And the game does transfer the rulebook of the physical card game into digital form, and so featuring over 800 cards. And you can add cards by acquiring them from in-game card packs or entering a password found on the physical card. And so there is features in this collection where you can unlock the cards, making it a little bit easier to dive into these games, as many of these were made for some hardcore fans of the Yu-Gi-Oh card series. But what I like about this collection is it makes it a lot more easier to jump into them and experience this fantastic game series. Different Yu-Gi-Oh games tried different things, and there was a request for more stories to be told in Yu-Gi-Oh games, and that's what you get with the sacred cards. At least that's what it was called here in North America. And so Yu-Gi-Oh pretty much has evolved over time, and this Game Boy Advance release, this one had a storyline, and so this was a fairly popular game, and it included characters Yugi and Joey as your friends. And I just want to emphasize how much value is in this collection. You're going to have probably hundreds of hours of gameplay, and you're going to have your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh video game of this classic era, the early years. It's kind of crazy how many games were released in that time period. And the Game Boy Advance had so many fantastic releases, and Yu-Gi-Oh was well represented. And then you have games such as the Yu-Gi-Oh World Championship Tournament 2004. In Japan, it was known as Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Monsters Expert 3. And this is just another card battle game based on the franchise, and it was released here in North America on February 10th, 2004. A little bit over 20 years ago. Okay, and it has 1,138 cards. And so it's kind of nuts how much depth is in this card game series. The sheer volume of game content on this collection, let alone the money that you're going to save, because the physical releases of these original games, if you add them all up, it's probably going to be pretty expensive. So Konami re-releasing this, adding modern features to enjoy these games on two very popular platforms, Steam or Switch, you're going to have a blast. So here's kind of an oddity. And so this is a game, it's a board game, and it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Destiny Board Traveler. And you know what? This is a little different. And so the game combines a Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game and a 5x5 game board. And each game board has a different theme determined by the character it belongs to. And so this is just kind of a unique kind of take on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. And so there's a lot of card games included with this collection. What I do appreciate, though, is the inclusion of these games, as it kind of mixes up kind of the variability of what to play. And this would be a type of game I would probably gravitate to. There's so much to enjoy about this collection. Anyways, just wanted to show a sample of what you get with this collection. This collection is coming out for Steam and Switch on February 27th for $49.99 US, and there is a physical card exclusive for the Switch release. Please check it out and enjoy this release. Thank you so much for viewing this video. If you like what you see, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you take care.